with our opening remarks here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Microsoft AVD and Windows 365 and Citrix Better Together. So my name is Salma Tofi, and I'll be the moderating for our session today. We're excited to have you here, and as we explore how Citrix enhances Microsoft Azure Virtual Desktop and Windows 365 to optimize performance, improve security, and reduce costs. So before I hand it over to Patrick and we dive into every single part of the details, I would like to go over a quick housekeeping items. First, the webinar will take around 30 minutes, followed by a live Q&A session. So please feel free to submit your questions in the chat throughout the webinar or in the Q&A, and we'll get through them at the end. In addition to that, a recording of the slides and the entire webinar is going to be sent to you right after. So please, we're welcoming any questions throughout, and we'll get to them at the end. Thank you. I'll hand it over to you, Patrick.
Great. Thank you very much, Salma. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar on how Microsoft AVD and Windows 365 with Citrix works better together. What if you could reduce your AVD and Windows 365 annual cost by 25% or more? In this webinar, you'll discover how leveraging Citrix with AVD and Win 365 can significantly reduce not only your costs, but also the management and complexity of your infrastructure environment. Next there, Roberto. Sorry, you're great. So my name is Patrick Nitto, and I'll be one of your hosts this afternoon. I'm joined today by Roberto Vick, our Senior Solutions Architect with over 22 years of VDI and DAS experience. Roberto has worked directly with the industry's leading VDI solution providers, including Citrix and VMware. In today's webinar, we'll provide a very brief overview of Altanora. Then we'll discuss the evolution and partnership that exists between Microsoft and Citrix. We'll then dive into Microsoft AVD and Windows 365 on how they're deployed and managed. Finally, we'll review how Citrix, when paired with Microsoft, provides not only significant cost savings, but also streamlines the overall management of our VDI solutions. At the end of the session, we'll review a special webinar offer available to today's attendees. So let's start. So who is Altanora? Well, Altanora is a managed service provider providing specialized services in VDI technologies. We're a double platinum Citrix partner and preferred service provider, as well as being a Microsoft Gold partner. Altanora specializes in VDI and desktop as a service solutions, including specializations in all relevant supporting infrastructure components. Our services include all aspects of VDI solution development and support, including all integrated infrastructure services from backup as a service to global data center hosting and management to endpoint deployment management. These services also include both reactive and proactive fully or partially managed services. And finally, we provide VDI professional project management services, managing projects from start to finish and everywhere in between. We also provide SME outsourcing on part-time and full-time basis for client-managed projects. I'll now hand this off to Roberto to walk you through the technical aspects of our session today. Roberto?
Thank you, Patrick, and good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. I see a few names out there that I'm from past experiences at Citrix and VMware, so good to see you all joining this webinar today. So I'll go ahead and get started and go over the, like I said, Patrick mentioned the evolution of innovation with Citrix and Microsoft. So we'll get started now. Over the last 30 years, Citrix has developed a deeply embedded relationship with Microsoft and has therefore continued to build upon the Microsoft platform. Dating back from terminal server all the way to cloud PCs today, thousands of organizations worldwide trust Citrix and Microsoft to streamline their IT. Citrix and Microsoft solutions are in use by more than 400,000 organizations, including 99% of the Fortune 500, with over 100 million users across the globe. Let's get into a little bit of what the differences are between Win 365 and AVD. This is a question that we receive a lot from our customers, and I just kind of want to level set before we continue to get on into the presentation. So Win 365, or Cloud PC how it's also known, is designed for simplicity and end users, offering a fully managed, persistent desktop experience, basically a one-to-one user to PC assignment. This is ideal for businesses that want predictable, per user pricing, and minimal IT overhead. Subscription-based fixed monthly pricing per user. This makes costs predictable, regardless of how much the desktop is used. It's also fully managed by Microsoft with minimal setup required. Managed through Microsoft Intune and ideal for organizations without deep IT or technical expertise, or specific at least to Microsoft Win365. Limited scalability and customization options. These environments are predefined, making it easier to use but less flexible for unique or complex requirements or use cases within your organization. It's also seamless. It seamlessly integrates with Microsoft 365 apps and services, providing a persistent desktop experience that feels like a personal PC in the cloud. Now, on the other hand, AVD, or Azure Virtual Desktop, was built for flexibility and scalability, offering both personal, one-to-one, and pooled multi-session desktops, ideal for IT teams managing complex environments or use cases and supporting large-scale variable workloads. Pay-as-you-go pricing based on the actual usage, and that means compute, storage, and networking, which can be more cost-efficient, for seasonal or dynamic workloads. AVD requires more configuration and ongoing management by IT admins, which includes setting up host pools, scaling, and maintaining infrastructure through the Azure portal. AVD is highly scalable and customizable, with support for hybrid cloud environments, custom images, app streaming, and multi-session capabilities. AVD is better suited for scenarios requiring session-based desktops, app virtualization, or running workloads across multiple Azure regions. One question we see from our customers is really we went ahead and invested in AVD or Win365, and we were told, this is what we should expect. And in reality, sometimes they do see a little bit of different things here. So what I'm going to do in this slide, and the point is, kind of talk about what the perception is with AVD and Win365, and what the reality of customers that have embarked and invested in AVD and 365. So some of the perceptions that we see are cost efficiency, right? Specifically with AVD, the pay-as-you-go model. AVD leverages Azure's consumption-based pricing model, which can be more cost-effective for companies already using Azure services. Licensing advantage. AVD includes entitlements for organizations with Microsoft 365 or Windows Enterprise licenses, reducing additional licensing costs compared to Citrix's more complex licensing structure, which has changed recently, and I'll get into that forward on in the presentation. But again, this is previous perceptions that we had. In terms of deployment and management, AVD is perceived to have a simpler, less complex setup for organizations that are already on Azure, and the same is true for Win365. It's easier to manage using native tools like the Azure portal, eliminating the need for additional third-party software or expertise required by Citrix. Direct support and updates. Organizations often see AVD as having faster access to updates and fixes directly from Microsoft, given that it's part of their broader ecosystem. Now, for the flip side, what are we seeing in the real world, right? And these are conversations that Patrick and I and other Altanora employees have with our customers as we embark on assessments with them or just have conversations with them, kind of what they're really seeing in the real world once they implement Win365 or AVD, right? So the first one is the need for third-party applications. So when we refer to third-party applications, the reason is that AVD lacks many enterprise-grade features natively. The same, again, is true for Win365, requiring additional third-party tools for management, security, and performance optimization. Customers often need third-party solutions for monitoring, user experience analytics, and automation, which in turn increases complexity and increases costs as well. Integrating third-party tools not only introduces compatibility challenges, but also increase cost and potential security risks. Many customers also report that their actual AVD spending significantly exceeds their initial estimates. Customers frequently underestimate the cost of running AVD due to complex Azure pricing models. Compute storage, networking, and licensing costs often add up quickly, making it difficult to predict the total spend. Another thing that we see, and we do offer HR and HA and DR capabilities, is that AVD does not provide built-in HA or disaster recovery, leaving customers vulnerable to outages. Microsoft is responsible for the last 30 days and will only refund the cost of the lost service during that time, leaving businesses covering the cost of lost business and customer perception. So very important to keep that in mind within your environments, that you do look for robust HA and DR capabilities to avoid any outages or negative customer perception in the event that there is an outage or a disaster that impacts your business. Also, Microsoft's SLAs for AVD is based on individual Azure components, not the overall service, leading to gaps in coverage. Customers are responsible for managing uptime and performance with no comprehensive end-to-end warranty. Service disruptions can have significant business impacts and limited recourse for organizations relying solely on AVD. And then, we talked about in the previous slide, the complexity of Citrix licensing. That was a case. I mean, I did spend some time at Citrix working, and there were a lot of different SKUs, editions that, customers can pick from. Over the last year and a half, 2 years, Citrix has migrated just to now 2 SKUs. So it's simplified its licensing model. So like I said, two SKUs, making it easier for customers to choose the right fit. That's going to be the Ultra, the UHMC license, and the platform license. This streamlined offering contrasts with AVD's unpredictable costs and fragmented capabilities. So why choose Citrix and Microsoft for hybrid work? I'm not insinuating that AVD or Win365 are competitors to Citrix or is a bad platform to be on. Just that they're both great ways of making for cloud VDI and cloud PCs available to your users. But you can accomplish so much more when you bring Citrix into the mix. Today, I'm going to highlight some of those specifics, which include creating a hybrid cloud infrastructure for DAS that lets you continue using your on-premises investments and legacy apps while simultaneously taking advantage of the flexibility, scale, and performance that Azure has to offer. It also makes the entire administration effort behind app and desktop delivery more efficient, easier, scalable, and more repeatable for your IT team. It also provides your employees a great user experience that is second to none. Today's presentation I'm delivering to you is being delivered via a virtual desktop running in Azure, or running, sorry, in our data center, via a virtualized instance of Microsoft Teams. So you can see there's really no performance degradation. And if I would have said that everyone here may have thought that I was running this from my local device here in my home. It also improves security across the entire stack at rest and in flight with stronger adaptive authentication and zero trust. And lastly, it dramatically reduces cloud operating costs and complexity so you can preserve more of your budget and limited IT resources, and essentially allowing organizations to take money that they're running to run everyday operations and allow your users or your IT admins to focus and invest that money and time in more strategic initiatives within your organization. So I'll get a little bit more into the key benefits of AVD and Windows 365. I'll start off with HDX, or high definition user experience. Citrix HDX technology is designed to deliver the best possible user experience, even in challenging network conditions. With adaptive throughput and multimedia optimizations, Citrix ensures smooth telephony, video conferencing, and high-performance applications. Unlike native AVD or Win365, Citrix HDX provides superior performance on low bandwidth or high latency networks, making it ideal for remote and mobile workforces. Citrix supports unified communication tools such as Microsoft Teams and Zoom with optimized audio and video for a seamless user experience. Next is flexibility and choice. Citrix provides the most extensive support for devices and peripherals, including multi-monitor setups, webcams, voice over IP headsets, and specialty USB devices. Users can connect virtually from any endpoint, ensuring a consistent and optimized experience across different hardware platforms. Unlike cloud desktops, Citrix allows for greater flexibility for power users, designers, and engineers who need multi-monitor workflows and specialized peripherals, such as high-end graphics. By enabling USB redirection and expanded hardware compatibility, Citrix helps organizations maintain workforce productivity without compromising on security. Which leads me to security and compliance. As we all know, security is a top concern for organizations, and Citrix enhances AVD and Win365 with granular policy controls to prevent data leaks and unauthorized access. Session recording provides visibility into user activity, helping organizations meet compliance requirements and investigate security incidents. With features such as client drive and printer restrictions, Citrix minimizes the risk of data exfil while still allowing users to remain productive. And finally, adaptive access policies enable dynamic security controls based on user context, such as location, device, and risk level. And lastly is identity and trust, which is a big topic that we're talking with our customers nowadays. Citrix integrates with leading identity providers to support single sign-on and multi-factor authentication, thus enhancing security and user convenience. Unlike native Microsoft solutions, Citrix provides additional flexibility for authentication methods and policies, ensuring organizations can meet their specific security needs. With support for SAML 2.0 and Citrix-ready validated identity providers, organizations can integrate Citrix seamlessly into their existing authentication frameworks. By centralizing identity and access management, Citrix simplifies IT administration while reducing the risk for credential theft and unauthorized access. Next, I'm going to get into a little bit more in detail what Windows 365 and AVD offer, and also what third-party management add-ons exist in today's ecosystem. So when we talk about Win 365 and AVD, Win 365 offers basic monitoring and support, which includes built-in support and monitoring via Microsoft Endpoint Manager and native Azure tools. In regards to deployment, Win 365 provides simplified cloud PC provisioning and management, particularly for businesses using Microsoft Intune. From an app and desktop service point of view, Win 365 offers full Windows desktops and applications as a service via the cloud. And lastly, it also includes a gateway service, which ensures remote access for your users, ensuring seamless connectivity. Win 365 provides a simplified, fully managed cloud PC experience, but lacks some of the advanced auto-scaling, cost optimization, and some automation features that third-party solutions can provide. When we look at AVD, it's a little bit more robust, and again, for more complex organizations and use cases than Win 365, but it does offer some of the basic things such as providing Azure and log analytics for tracking session performance, diagnostics, and troubleshooting. However, advanced monitoring requires third-party tools or custom setups. From a deployment perspective, AVD allows flexible deployment options, including pooled and personal desktops, where organizations can deploy AVD using image gallery, Azure Resource Manager templates. When we talk about desktop as a service, AVD offers full Windows desktops and applications from Azure, supporting multi-session Windows 10 or 11, Windows Server, and personal desktops. AVD also includes a gateway service that secures remote connection through Microsoft infrastructure without requiring a VPN. AVD also has built-in auto-scaling features via Azure Virtual Machines scaling sets, but requires configuration and scripting. And lastly, AVD has a management console, which is done via the Azure portal, PowerShell, and Azure Resource Manager templates, which can be a little bit complex for those that are not too familiar with ARM or PowerShell. AVD provides all core services, but some require additional configuration or third-party tools, which I'll get into now in the next few slides, for enhanced automation, auto-scaling, and monitoring. As I mentioned in the previous slide, advanced auto-scaling, cost optimization, and some automation features, which are lacking in Win 365 and AVD, but there are third-party solutions such as Nerdio and Citrix, which can offer and augment these feature sets within Microsoft AVD and Win 365, as is evident in this puzzle that we're starting to build out here, where you can see in white the better auto-scaling and optimized console are feature sets that a third-party tools such as Nerdio can bring into your environment. For those that require advanced monitoring, for example, companies such as Sepago can offer these services as well. So you can see here, we're starting to build out and make a more robust environment and building off what the base offerings of Microsoft AVD and Win 365 are. By eliminating the need for third-party third-party add-ons, Citrix natively provides essential features like advanced monitoring, user support, auto-scaling, and security, eliminating the need for additional vendors. Customers avoid the complexity and licensing costs associated with third-party tools, thus streamlining their AVD deployments. A fully integrated solution, which includes Citrix and Microsoft, reduces vendor sprawl, making management simpler, more efficient, and more cost-effective, as we'll see in some future slides when I showed some of the case studies that I'm going to highlight, where moving in with Citrix with AVD has actually lowered the cost per user when we start factoring out these third-party tools that customers rely on to make that management more efficient and that environment more robust. So here we can see these 8 different pillars, what the AVD third-party system looks like. I mean, these aren't all of them. These are the more common third-party tools that we see out in the environments, right? So we look at monitoring analytics, troubleshooting from a protocol perspective, OS and app management, profile and environment management, universal printing, security. We can see there's a plethora of tools and third-party utilities that we can use, which all require different subscriptions or have different complexity, different learning curves for your IT admins to learn how to manage and leverage these tools within your environment. You'll notice under monitoring analytics, we have Uber Agent, and we also have device trust under security. And under OS app management, we also have their Unicon. So when we look at what Citrix offers in the Citrix and AVD value add, Citrix enhances AVD while reducing complexity and cost by limiting the third-party monitoring, auto-scaling, performance optimization, or security add-ons. It lowers Azure consumption and licensing costs through efficient resource management and will enhance performance, security, and management, all from a single platform. What customers will have is a fully integrated, cost-effective solution for enterprises looking to optimize their AVD environment. So here we can do a double click as to what it looks like from a terms of a pricing. So adding third-party products to match Citrix and AVD functionalities can range anywhere between $60 to $100 per user per month. This depends on the organization's need and scale. The prices reflected in this slide are a reflection of what we have seen from customers we have worked with and supported in adding Citrix to their VDI environment. Citrix and AVD offers an integrated approach, potentially saving over $330,000 over 3 years for a 1,000 user deployment, as I'll show in the next slide. So in this slide here, we see a typical customer which has about 1,000 knowledge workers with a medium workload using Windows 10 in a multi-session VM. The savings that we see here are in part to the Citrix value add of adding it to the AVD, their existing AVD implementation. We'll see here, we did add a $10 to $30 user add-on cost for the Citrix licensing, but then we start seeing savings of about 30 to 50% in operational costs, which are due to the advanced monitoring and user support, Citrix Director, Uber Agent, and Workspace Environment Manager. These are all feature sets that are included with the Citrix subscription. From an infrastructure cost, we're seeing around a 25 to 50% savings, and this is due to Uber advanced auto-scaling and image management with provisioning services or machine creation services, which are feature sets which are included with the Citrix subscription. Excuse me, can you mute yourself? All right, here I wanted to highlight a use case from American real estate consultancy firm in the US. The primary goal of this project was the customer wanted to reduce their IT costs and improve agility, standardize the IT environment by replacing unsupported components, and centralize IT management and reduce ongoing maintenance efforts. The firm conducted a comprehensive evaluation of several solutions. The goal was to replace its on-premises application virtualization infrastructure for approximately 300 users who rely on critical line of business applications, assess third-party tools and management for management and monitoring. This customer decided to go with Citrix DaaS combined with their Azure Virtual Desktop solution. Citrix delivered enhanced functionality for both administrators and end users. The solution provided a cost savings of approximately $9 per user per month, which equated to about 29% reduction in overall solution cost, which can be highlighted here in the chart. We see their native Azure, the Citrix cost, and then the reduction in operational cost, and then the actual virtual cost, or the actual cost at the end once this implementation done with Citrix. The key takeaway here is that modernized IT environments not only streamlined operations, but also significantly reduce costs, improving the firm's overall IT efficiency. Okay, so why are customers coming back to Citrix to enhance AVD and Win365? As I mentioned previously, reducing Azure consumption costs through efficient resource management and the reliance on third-party add-ons with the cost and complexity associated with them is one of the main reasons we are seeing customers either returning to or embracing Citrix to enhance their AVD and Windows 365 environments. Performance and user experience. Citrix ATX provides a better WAN performance and multimedia support, graphics acceleration, as well as better performance and user experience for users with high latency or low bandwidth connections compared to Microsoft RDP. Graphics work industries like engineering industries, which rely on CAD and CAM, healthcare industries, which are leverage packs for radiology and viewing images, and financial trading rely on Citrix GPU acceleration to save costs in procuring and managing high-end graphics workstations. Hybrid multi-cloud and multi-cloud flexibility is a huge feature and a huge reason we're seeing these customers coming back to Citrix or embracing Citrix. AVD, as we know, is cloud-only with Azure, while Citrix offers true multi-cloud deployments, which include on-prem, hybrid, and multi-cloud deployment options, thus giving customers the options to host workloads where it makes the most sense for them due to cost and or regulatory compliance. Management and scalability. AVD's management, as I mentioned earlier, is done through Azure Resource Manager, Intune, and PowerShell, which can be complex and somewhat disjointed for customers that aren't too well versed in these tools. Citrix Studio and Citrix Cloud provide a unified console that simplifies administration for large-scale environments. Citrix Autoscale offers better and granular control over VM provisioning than AVD's native autoscaling features. Organizations often return to Citrix when they struggle with unpredictable Azure compute costs. Then we also talk about security and compliance, right? So Citrix provides a more robust access control policy enforcement and contextual authentication compared to AVD's built-in security. And finally, I talked about the licensing, new licensing options. So now Citrix offers the Universal Hybrid Multi-Cloud and Platform License. The UHMC license provides universal access across on-prem, hybrid, and multi-cloud environments, and the user device-based subscription model that simplifies licensing for organizations using Citrix across different infrastructures. The Citrix Platform License, on the other hand, includes every capability that Citrix offers, as well as an unlimited capacity, and will also include future innovations as well as acquisitions made by Citrix. For example, the recent acquisition of Uber Agent and most recently, Unicon. This license benefits customers in that they can begin to evaluate the replacement of AVD third-party add-ons such as Nerdio, Sepago, ControlUp, for example, just to mention a few, with the equivalent Citrix solutions such as VPNs with ZTNA, vSphere with XenServer, etc. As Patrick mentioned at the beginning of today's webinar, we're offering a special offer for those attending today's webinar. That offers a free VDI assessment for those customers which are interested in embarking in an assessment of their current VDI environment, which will identify areas of cost savings and how they can increase their ROI. Customers that have engaged with Altanora have seen savings ranging from anywhere between 30 to 70% of their infrastructure and VDI spend, as well as a reduction in complexity and increase in security and improved user experience. After today's webinar, we'll be sending a recording, as Selma mentioned, and there will be a link for those that are interested in participating in this and taking advantage of this VDI environment or assessment, to complete the link, and one of us will be in contact with you to go ahead and set up the environment. And with that, I conclude today's webinar, and I thank you for your time, and I will leave it open now for Q&A. Selma, are there any questions in the chat that we need to address?
Oh, you're on mute, Selma.
Thanks, Patrick, for that. Well, thank you, Roberto, for that insightful presentation. You've given us a really great overview today. So now let's move on to the Q&A session. We've received a couple of questions, comments from our audience. And if you haven't already, please feel free to drop in your question in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll get to it. So our first question is, and please, Patrick or Roberto, feel free to chime in. So the first question is, do we have options to publish 16 or 32-bit legacy apps in AVD?
So the applications, go ahead, Patrick.
Go right ahead, bro.
Yeah. So the applications that you can publish via AVD or and with Citrix are going to be dependent on the applications that can be published or installed on the operating system, be it Windows 10, Windows 11, or Windows Server. More than likely, 16-bit applications are going to be a little bit more difficult to virtualize because they're not compatible with those operating systems. But essentially, any client-server application or client application that is supported to run in a multi-user environment, such as Windows Server, Windows 10, Windows 11, can be virtualized and delivered in a virtualized environment via a VDI desktop or as a published application. We're just going to deliver an application as well. We not only support Windows applications, but SaaS applications can also be published and managed through AVD and Windows and Citrix together.
Great. Well, thank you for that. We have another comment / question here. So someone said we switched from Citrix to AVD last year. We started with pooled instances, but had some more dedicated to improve user experience. Our ROI is now far less interesting, but still better than hosting the VDA, the VDA on-prem. I did not get where you guys can help. We don't have any Citrix experts in-house. So can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
So yeah, one of the things, sorry, go ahead, Patrick.
Well, no, just I'll just address the Citrix one. So as we kind of alluded a little bit earlier, where Citrix resources are a little bit more of a commodity these days. We're fortunate enough to house over 50 technical resources that are employees of our organization. That's why we're one of the largest in North America. So we're able to provide those resources either through project work or through consulting engagements, or even on contractual basis. Some of our clients actually will have some of our resources on a 6-month engagement embedded within their teams. So you can do a bit of a variety of that from a resourcing perspective. Now, from the technical aspect, I'll let Roberto chime in there.
Yeah, and I think from a technical aspect, in terms, I think the individual mentioned they had some dedicated desktop, some shared resources. It all boils down to to understanding what the use cases are within your organization, and understanding what's the best offering. Is it a dedicated VDI desktop? Is it a VDI desktop that's not dedicated, right? It's more of a pooled where when I log off at the end of the day, yeah, my changes are saved to my profile, but it's not a persistent desktop, right? Or is there an option, maybe do I have some users within my organization that benefit from just receiving a shared desktop, right? Where we're taking the Windows server and carving out instances of that server and giving them access to the user. So essentially we're hosting multiple users on one virtual machine rather than giving one virtual machine dedicated to a user, right? So there's a lot of nuances there that we need to look into. It's hard to say specifically in your instance why those costs were driven up and maybe your ROI is not where you expect it to be. And that's something that we can do, via an assessment, really, understand your environment, how it's set up, what your use cases are, and make recommendations how to best optimize the design of your environment to reduce those costs. Make sure we're taking advantage of auto scaling, right? So we're turning off resources when they're not being used, spinning them up when we need them, right? So there's a lot of little nuances we can look at and configure to optimize. And like Patrick said, we have the expertise in house. We've been doing this for a very long time to be able to really get the best performance and the best ROI out of your license in your environment.
Okay, great. We have actually a few more questions here in the chat. So we'll start by the first one. So what are customers using for endpoint devices?
So from an endpoint device, that's really up to the customer. I mean, Unicon, for example, is an acquisition that Citrix has made. So, we're starting to see customers expressing interest in leveraging that entitlement that they have now for existing Citrix customers. We have customers that use iPads, iOS devices, Android devices different type of thin clients, PCs, Macs. So, essentially, in a platform AVD with Citrix, it's device independent, right? So, Citrix has a saying, any device, any connection, anywhere. So it's really up to the customer as to what device is best for the customer. We have, customers that do BYO, where they either give their employees a stipend or allow them to use whatever device they're comfortable with, right? Because everything's being virtualized and controlled and secured by the data center, and giving that freedom of choice to their users, right? So it's hard to say which is the most popular device out there.
Yeah.
It's really up to the end user and the organization, and that's the beauty of Citrix with AVD, that you're not tied to a specific endpoint, and really depending on the endpoint's not going to dictate your experience, right? It's going to be dictated more on how the environment is configured and managed in the back end, because everything that's being sent over the wire is just essentially screen updates and mouse and keystrokes.
Yeah, one thing as well is, and maybe just expand on that, is that obviously the benefit of this overall solution is to also deploy and acquire more cost-effective pieces of hardware. We're working on several projects right now where, for instance, people are extending the life of their Windows 10 devices because they don't have the necessary hardware to migrate to Windows 11. So we're actually working on projects where we're expecting a 3 to 4 year life extension on some of these devices. And we're actually just with one of our customers out of Houston right now, we're starting like a several hundred unit POC just for that. So most often we'll see customers using like more thin client based. We even see Chromebook type applications being used. A lot of it does depend on what you're leveraging internally from your applications. Certainly our customers who are more into manufacturing and advanced CAD, they're going to require a slightly more robust thin client, but they're still not having to invest in the $4,000 or $5,000 laptop or so on and so forth in order to get the same amount of quality services and so on, or results out of the VDI. So you can really reduce your IT hardware spend and extend that life through these solutions.
Great. So actually, we have a follow-up question from the person that was mentioning Citrix, how they switched from Citrix to AVD last year, saying Microsoft paid for our Citrix on-prem to AVD migration. Do we have a similar program to move out of AVD but keep our VDA on Azure?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So there are some programs in place, but they're starting to come to an end. So these are things that we do encourage our partners and our customers to work a little bit more quickly towards this. But there are programs in place that will finance significant amounts. In fact, we've received six-figure financing for some of these migrations for some of our customers to do that migration itself. So there still are programs, and we can talk to you a little bit more afterwards about what your specific requirements are. But there are definitely funds. In fact, we're working on several projects right now available for that. So.
Great. Okay, I'm going to try to get to all the questions. We're getting some great questions here. So the next one was, can you integrate Windows Terminal server into this experience for lower cost service to user with basic needs?
So I mean, Windows Terminal Server is AVD. That's the foundation, right? So multi-win and whatnot, and that's the whole. What I was talking about at the beginning. There are customers that just using native AVD may be sufficient for them because it's maybe not a very complex environment that they're running. So I guess, to answer your question, you can do what we're talking about here with AVD, but it's going to be a very limited in terms of the management tools that you have, the resource allocation or resource management. For customers that require a little bit more complex, for example, mapping different peripherals or devices, supporting high-end graphics, supporting, multimedia over these sessions, AVD may not be the right solution for them, and that's where the Citrix value add brings in that additional performance and management capabilities that AVD lacks at the moment. So I guess to answer your question, you can do it just with like terminal services, which is what AVD is now. But for situations where you do require more complexity, more complex use cases, then the AVD with Citrix is the solution that's recommended.
Okay, great. So I am going to move to the next question. Someone is asking, could I be a candidate to move into this new way to deliver apps and desktop if I recently renewed my license for 3 years last November?
I think there is definitely a path towards this. Once again, this is a bit of a special use case, but we're working with customers right now on these migration projects where they've received funding and their renewals were actually done. In one instance, it was 13 months ago, and we're just actually starting to work on the project right now. Interestingly enough, we have multiple buckets of funding available, with Microsoft and Citrix to actually maximize these types of investments and migrations. So we can definitely schedule some time to chat and map that out for you. But there are still funds available, even if you renewed it over a year ago. So.
Sorry. So we have one more question here. So as Windows 10 is going EOL, will those workstations be automatically updated, and how will this help?
So, I mean, in terms of managing the OSs, if you're doing Win365, that'll be managed by Microsoft, and they'll manage that upgrade. But for those that are on AVD with Citrix, that's on the administrators to make sure they're managing and patching and updating the operating systems for the devices they're delivering. So, Altanora offers managed services, so we can do that on behalf of the customers that aren't too keen on managing or don't have the experience to manage, a Citrix environment. We offer those services as well. But yeah, to answer your question, it's not something that's automatically updated if you're on a Citrix AVD type platform. That's something that would need to be taken into consideration in terms of your image management process to make sure that, first of all, your images are updated, with all the security patches. And then as some of these operating systems start to go end of life or end of life, that you start that migration to, Windows 11, for example, right? And the beauty of Citrix AVD, that it makes it a lot less painful, right? Because you don't have to be touching every single endpoint out in your ecosystem. It's just updating a couple images in your data center and then pushing that image out, or that updated image out to your users. So, yeah, I think hopefully I answered your question there.
Yeah, and I think also there are some hardware specifications and limitations that could impact that. So that's just one thing to be aware of as well.
Okay, so we actually don't have any more questions. If you guys want to move on with the rest of the slides here.
Okay.
Okay, so so finally, we'd like to thank you for attending today's webinar, and would like to wrap it up. It's really great questions that we got here in the Q&A and chat. We hope you found this session valuable and gained some useful insights into how Citrix enhances Microsoft AVD and Windows 365. We will be having more webinars coming up throughout the year, so we'll be sharing more details as each one is finalized. So please stay tuned. We'll be communicating that through emails, and we'll for sure be in contact. If you have any other further questions, please feel free to reach out. And thanks again. We look forward to seeing you in the next webinar. And as you can see on the screen, here are some ideas for the upcoming webinars. Patrick, you have something else?
And one last thing too is what's really important about these upcoming webinars is that these new solutions, as Roberto had also mentioned, are included with the new Citrix licenses. So these are new solutions that come at no additional cost. And on top of that, there's still the new features of unlimited NetScalers, unlimited Zen server, and so on that are built into the new UHMC licenses. So this would be an opportunity for everyone to better understand these new free solutions that come with your Citrix licenses today if you're an existing Citrix customer. And if not, well, then how can you leverage these newer technologies to provide you with a better ROI? And that's why we're going to be diving deep into each one of these solutions, because they each on their own are a great solution itself, but now they're bundled free with the new Citrix UHMC licenses, which make it an even better value add.
Thank you, Patrick, for that. Well, okay, thank you again. And we look forward to seeing you in all our next webinars.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day.